Welcome to Of Sound Mind and Spirit. I'm Shelly.
And I'm Lisa. We're sisters walking together on a journey of faith. We're not perfect.
We definitely don't have all the answers. We're inviting you to walk with us as we explore ways we can better know and grow in our faith together.
Welcome back to another episode from Of Sound Mind and Spirit. Hi, Shelly.
Hello, Lisa.
I am happy today to introduce, we have a guest with us, and it is Gary Zimak, and he is an author, and he's here to talk to us about, well, really about Jesus and anxiety and worry. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me. Hello, Shelly. Great to be on with both of you.
Hey. We're thrilled to have you here. And what's prompted it is your latest book is Lord,
Yes.
Save Me. Prayers and encouragement when life feels hard. But before we talk about this one specifically, Gary, we've read several of your books. You've been quite prolific.
Thanks be to God. I don't know how, Lisa. I don't know how it happens, but I think I know the Holy Spirit has been working through me, and He gives it to me, and I write them. That's what I'm trying to do.
So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to our audience?
Sure. I was born in Philadelphia, PA. I live pretty much in that area right now. I live in southern New Jersey, right over the bridge from Philly. I've been in this area all of my life. I'm a cradle Catholic. I was incredibly lukewarm for so many years, although I went to Mass faithfully every week. I went to 12 years of Catholic school. And it's amazing as an anxious person, as somebody who tends to be anxious. And I've struggled with this from the time I was very young. I never made the connection that Jesus could help me with my anxiety until, several years ago. But it took a number of years for that to happen. And it's interesting because he speaks about it so often. And again, I never fell away from going to church. I worked for 30 years as a software developer. I'm married to a wonderful woman named Eileen. I have twin daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. They're 27 years old. We all still live together. It's just a real blessing. I'm blessed to have a great family. And in 2012, I was laid off from my day job. And this was after having a pretty big conversion experience. Some would call it a reversion because it didn't involve me changing denominations or anything. But it was a major awakening when the Lord became very real to me. And it happened in the midst of a medical situation. I thought I was dying because as an anxious person, my area of specialty has always been worrying about my health. So the Lord knew how to get my attention. And then after this big conversion experience, when He became real to me, I started praying, and my wife prayed along with me. Lord, I want you to use me. Please use me as your instrument. I want to work for you in some way, never expecting to get laid off from my day job. And that was in 2012 when that happened. January the 6th. And at the time, my wife said to me, you always wanted to work full time as an evangelist. I had no books written. I had no speaking engagements. And I decided, once my wife suggested that I'm going to try this and we'll see what happens. Well, 14 books later, this is working somehow. And it's all thanks to God. It's incredible. Like people often say, well, you're so brave, you got out of the boat. And I always say, I didn't get out of the boat. I got kicked out of the boat. And I was trying to get back in the boat, but somehow the Lord really has provided. And I made a deal with Him. I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can, as long as He enables me to travel and to write and to speak. I'm going to do it because I want people to know how real He is and how much He can help them.
I love that, Gary. I love that you put this faith and trust in the Lord and that He does answer these prayers. And one way or the other, for some people, it may not be that path, but that you see His hand at work in this. And have all of your books been about the same or similar topic?
Yeah, for the most part. And that's so interesting because I never intended to be the worry guy. That was not my intention. But most of my books deal with anxiety or trusting in the Lord. I did write a book about the Blessed Mother. I wrote a book about the Holy Spirit. I wrote a book about discerning God's will. Essentially, Shelley, I write books that I need to read. And it's interesting how the Blessed Mother book came about. That was the second book I wrote. I was struggling with her. And as a cradle Catholic, I figured I had no problem with Mary. She was always around. My mother had a great devotion to her. But I just didn't get the importance of turning to Mary when I could turn to Jesus. I didn't necessarily have a problem with her. I thought, I'm a pretty black and white guy. And if I can go to Jesus, then why don't I just go to him? So I wanted to learn more about the Blessed Mother. I realized everybody else is saying, people who are much more knowledgeable and faith-filled than I am are saying how important she is. So I thought, I must be missing something. So I prayed about it, and I ended up writing a book about the Blessed Mother. But right now, I tend to focus on overcoming anxiety and giving hope to the hopeless, because so many people need hope. And I want to be that guy that can help them find hope in the Lord.
I'm sure that you know about the statistics and the studies that are showing that our culture and our society, people are just more anxious and racked with more worry and feeling hopeless more than really, I'm going to say ever, but I can't speak to ever, but at least the last many decades. So I think that's one of the connections a lot of us have with your books, is because we see that in our own lives. But why do you think so many people are wrestling with this?
Well, I think one thing, of course, the world is pretty messed up right now. But if you look back through history, it's always been messed up, and for one reason or another, it's been crazy. I think we have so much access to information now. Even if I'm not worried, I just look on my phone and I wasn't worried about this, but maybe I should be. And even the weather, sometimes I travel a lot leading parish missions. And a lot of times the weather channel will be on in the hotel room. I don't usually watch much TV when I'm traveling, but sometimes I'll just turn it on and see what's happening. And the weather channel's on, and that's frightening me. There's a danger of a hurricane or a tornado or some sort of flooding. It's like, oh my gosh. So we have such access to bad information. And I think the media does a very poor job in presenting the truth. And what I mean by that is we get a half-truth. A half-truth is that there are plenty of reasons to be afraid. There's danger all around us. But we don't get the other side of that, the other half of that, which is that the Lord is bigger than any problem we may face. That's why it's good that you're doing this Catholic podcast, and we have Catholic radio and TV networks to get the full truth out. Nobody's denying that it's not crazy out there and we don't have danger. But we have a God who's bigger than any problem or danger we could ever face. And that's why he has to remind us constantly, don't be afraid. He never said, don't be afraid because it's not scary out there. He said, don't be afraid because I love you, I'm with you, and I'm bigger than whatever you're facing. So it's a bit of a long answer, but I just feel the access to information, much of which is negative, really gives us so many reasons to be anxious.
Gary, full disclosure, do not have a copy of the book yet. Lisa does. But I have to tell you, when I saw the title, Lord Save Me, and I knew exactly where that came from, Peter's cry to Jesus, when he's walking in faith to Christ, and then suddenly he takes his eyes off of Christ and begins to sink. And it reminded me of a time both Lisa and I experienced during Hurricane Harvey down here in Houston. We had 50-something inches of rain, and over 3 days, it was a very anxious time, clearly, that there was so much flooding and people having to leave their homes. And I do remember that was one of the gospel readings about that time, either right before or right after, because I meditated on that, about how, there was nothing I could do. I was completely out of control of the weather, and I had to just fully rely on God in those moments. And I just remember laying in bed praying and being like, Lord, just please let it stop raining. Please let it stop raining. And for us, it turned out okay. But for others, they had a different path that God allowed them to walk. And I hope it was to bring them closer to him or to something better in their lives. But that's when I saw the title and you started talking about weather online. That's exactly where my mind went. So.
Yeah. And, Shelly, you bring up a great point. And I do remember those floods in Houston. I remember praying for you folks when that was happening. But people will say sometimes, what's the difference between fear and worry, or what exactly is worry? And worry is when we try to control the uncontrollable. Well, actually, anxiety arises when we try to control the uncontrollable. And then we begin to worry because we can't fix it. If you could fix the weather, you just fix it and then everything would be okay. But it's those situations where we're helpless that can cause many of us to spiral out of control and begin to worry. I'll be honest, I'm a control freak. I like to be in control. And when I'm not, I don't do well with that. But to be a follower of Christ, I mean, you know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
I can't be leading him. He has to be leading me. I don't like that. But that's what faith is all about. But I've learned, and I am learning, that we can find peace if we choose to trust him. If we make that choice and trust him. But it's not easy for some of us. But that's the way we're going to find peace, by giving up or giving in to him and saying, Lord, I surrender. Help me, but your will be done. I believe you can bring good out of this no matter what happens.
Now, in your experience, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In your experience, then, what is the biggest obstacle that prevents people from being able to surrender all their worries?
I think it's control. I think it's control and lack of trust. I mean, you can choose to trust. And it's another thing I always like to tell people. It took me a while to learn this. We can choose to trust no matter how we feel. We can still not have confidence or strong confidence that the Lord's going to get us through whatever we're going through, and choose to trust, even though we're scared to death. That takes effort. That is not something that comes easy for me, but I've learned to do it. On the bottom of the Divine Mercy image, it's one of my favorite prayers. Jesus, I trust in you. I pray that prayer all the time. And if I knew all the answers, or if I had full control, I wouldn't need to pray that prayer. That's what faith is all about. We walk by faith and not by sight, as what St. Paul tells us we should do. A lot of times we don't want to do that. We want to walk by sight and not by faith. Lord, I need a guarantee. I'll follow you, but you got to tell me all the details. But look at Abraham. The Lord said, all right, Abraham, I need you to leave your homeland. Follow me. I'll tell you where we're going when we get there. And he went, right? That's faith.
And I think also with our society, the way that our culture goes right now, that it's not just that we want to be in control, is that we expect the outcome we think is best.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we say, Jesus, I trust you, but then sometimes we're like, I trust you to give me what I think I deserve or need, or what I think would fulfill me the most. And it's hard to say, Jesus, I trust in you to do what you think is best, even if I'm not going to agree or hate it, or I'm going to suffer in some way with what you're asking me to do. And I think even those of us who can be very faithful have trouble, because we know it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's not going to be what we want. And so that was something I really loved about this book. What you touched on was you kind of hit on some of those responses of, it's not always going to be easy. When you pray and when you have faith, your life isn't going to be necessarily easy and beautiful.
Yeah, and there's always going to be some element of risk. There's always going to be some discomfort. I mean, look at Peter. The book, I start out with the story of Peter, as you said, walking on the water. Jesus called him to walk out on the water. I mean, he was a fisherman. He knew that was not technically possible, but he followed Jesus. He did it, and then he got so distracted by the waves and the wind that he began to sink. But even then, Peter knew enough to cry out, Lord, save me. And we see what happened. 3-word prayer. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and he grabbed Peter. And I love that, because sometimes as somebody who has worked in the software industry and who is very black and white with my thinking, yes or no, it's either this or that. Sometimes I second guess myself and I think, well, am I praying the right novena? Or maybe I didn't pray it enough times. I prayed it once. Maybe I need to do it 10 times. Or Lord, save me. 3 words. It worked, right? So we don't have to get the words right. And I tend to be a little, not scrupulous in the clinical sense, but I tend to be a little scrupulous when it comes to my words. Did I ask for the right thing? Well, if I don't ask for this, he's not going to give it to me. And if I don't get it right, then, and I drive myself crazy. Lord, save me is good enough. And I had a priest friend who used to pray, whenever you would go to him with somebody in need, he would pray, may they get what they need. And I love that prayer, because we don't always know. As we were just talking about, we don't always know what we need. We think we do, but sometimes we need suffering. We look at the life of Christ. We look at his mother's life, St. Joseph, all the great saints. They didn't have it easy. So if we're going to follow in their footsteps, we're going to have to trust that if the Lord allows us to suffer, he's going to give us the grace to go through it. I don't like that. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it, but it's the only way you're going to find peace in this life and do the Lord's will.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, would you explain for me just how your book is organized? I understand that there are, you kind of address some of the common struggles people have.
Right.
Can you just give us an example of one or two of the topics that it touches on?
Yeah, I broke it up into categories. Well, the way this book came about, I had a multi-book contract with Ave Maria Press. This is the final book on that contract. And they really wanted a prayer book from me because I would always, throughout my books, you've both read some of my books, you know that I always compose prayers. They liked the way that I prayed. And they said, we want you to write a book of prayers for people who are struggling. And I like that because I've learned a lot reading the prayers of others. It kind of shapes my prayers. So this started out as a prayer book. And I was praying about it, thinking like, all right, how am I going to make this work? And the book was written in a very difficult time for me. My wife has had a really tough year when it comes to physical ailments. She was diagnosed with epilepsy. She had glaucoma. This was just in the past year. And then she had a back issue with a herniated disc in her back. So she was in the hospital and dealing with all kinds of stuff. Thank God she's doing much better now. But I thought, how am I going to get this book written? So I was, this is the control freak in me. Lord, you want me to write this book, but I have problems. How am I going to get it written? And then he always manages to say, Gary, I'm the one writing the book, right? You can write the book in the midst of your problems. So what I did was I decided to break it down into different categories, different type of problems that we might, or anxiety-producing situations, and include Bible verses, reflections, and prayers. So I have multiple ones of each of those. And there are 10 different categories in the book. And I tried to think of what situations can produce anxiety or hopelessness in us. And I came up with when you are afraid, when you feel weak, when you're discouraged, when you're lonely, when you're confused, when you're suffering, when you feel hopeless, when you're burdened or overwhelmed, or when you're in need and feel helpless. And I broke it down to those 10 situations, and that covers a lot of ground there. And in the conclusion of the book, I made the point that when I was writing this book, I felt every one of those things. And, I always tell the Lord, I get scared when I tell him this, but I always say, Lord, if you need me to go through something so that I can use it to grow closer to you and help others, I'm in. I don't always feel it when I say those words. And he really put me to it with this book. But that's the breakdown. And as with all my books, I struggle with all these things, and I want people to know that I'm not immune to this. I struggle. I get discouraged. I feel hopeless sometimes. But feelings aren't facts, and I've learned that. The Lord's bigger, and he can help me. So that's how this particular format came about.
I like that. Feelings aren't facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read that. That was life-changing for me. That's not original, but I did read that, and I forget the person who said it, but it's so true. I might feel something is hopeless. It happens all the time. I've been praying for something for years now. Man, this is not, I don't think this is ever going to happen, but you can do all things, Lord. And I have to redirect myself. And, if we depend on our feelings for our spiritual life, we're going to be dead. It's just not going to work. We're going to be miserable. And we're going to what's going to happen? We'll stop praying eventually. Because I'm praying and I'm not feeling an answer. I don't feel the presence of the Lord. Or maybe he's not there, but I've learned to rise above my feelings because I'm somebody who tends to be very affected or influenced by my feelings. And that can be dangerous. That can be dangerous.
I find that when I have those kinds of feelings, it actually makes me, it changes the way I pray. It's like, why am I feeling this way, Lord? I'm trying to give this to you. I'm feeling all this stress, or I'm feeling all this anxiety. I know, Lord, that you will take care of this. Just, I pray I never doubt that you will take care of this, but could you hurry it up, please?
Yeah. Shelly, that's a great point. We can learn a lot about ourselves by the way we feel. And a lot of times what I realize is that, man, my faith is pretty weak. It's like, I know he's bigger than this. And if he's not fixing it, he's got another plan and he's going to give me the grace to deal with it. So why am I freaking out? But this is a process. It's a process for me. It's a process for you. It's a process for everyone who decides to follow the Lord. Abraham's faith didn't start out strong, and neither did Peter's. But Peter went through stuff. Peter chose to trust. And eventually, the more you trust, the more you realize, wow, the Lord's got this. He can handle this, but he's going to handle it in his time and in his way.
That is so true. I really think, Gary, what you were talking about, your own journey writing this book, I think it really comes through. The way that you write in here is very authentic.
Thank you for saying that.
You don't present it like you have all the answers and that there's sometimes people write books where it's like they're educating you in a way because they have all the answers, they figured it out. And no. This is very much like you're walking with us, that we're on this journey together.
That's my goal, Lisa. That is my goal. And, I joke about it sometimes, and I say, people say sometimes I have all the answers. And I say, actually, I do have the answer. In my books, even though you see all my weaknesses and my transparency, the answer is trusting in Jesus. I mean, that's the answer. I know that's the answer. But do I always live that? No. So, I think we have the answer, but I agree with you. I've read books about overcoming anxiety from Christian authors, and I think, man, this person doesn't know. They don't know what it's like to have panic attacks. They don't get it. I've heard people, well-meaning preachers and writers and speakers say, well, all you need to do is pray and you'll feel better. No, that's not always true. Sometimes you don't feel better. Eventually, you'll get peace of mind, get peace of heart, when you realize that, I've turned this over to the Lord and he can handle this. But it's not always that simple. And I get that. I mean, I've been through the panic attacks, the heart palpitations, the digestive problems, the doubt. I mean, I've been through all that. I get it. And I could say Jesus is the answer. But don't panic when you pray, Lord, please let me be at peace. And it doesn't happen instantly. Because it's not always that simple. So thank you for saying that. I want to be as transparent and as authentic as possible. Because I don't want to be preachy.
Yeah. No. I love that you gave us many different scriptures and reflections during each chapter. So it's not just one scripture and then basically a reflection on that and a prayer and saying, okay, now here's the one. So I found that, like, I was reading let me see what chapter it was, when you're burdened or overwhelmed chapter. And there were certain scriptures that but I'd never thought of them in that way, paired with your reflection and your prayer. And so, I was scribbling in my journal, like, okay, that's, that makes a lot of sense. And this I need to print out and like stick up on my mirror or something. So I remember it. Yeah. And it's not everything, but certain ones. And that's what I love is that you give us so many different ones that I think they'll find the right people to resonate with. And maybe one resonates with me right now, but give me 6 months, a year later when I'm going through something else, and then another one's going to jump out at me. So it's a book that I can keep and refer back to and read different times and stages of my life, depending on what I'm going through.
That was my goal. And, I tend to have a lot of daily devotionals that I read each day. And sometimes you'll turn to the reflection and say, this doesn't pertain to me. I'm not dealing with this today. So I wanted to give people a variety in order to guide them. And, I write a daily email reflection. A lot of people subscribe to that. That's been a blessing for me. I started it during the pandemic. And I key those daily reflections on the daily mass reading. So that stretches me a little bit, because sometimes, I don't know if you both ever had this experience, but I'm struggling with something and I go to daily mass and it's like, it's not hitting me today. I can't, Lord, this is not what I need today. It turns out a lot of times it is what I need, but it's not what he wants me to focus on something else. Or sometimes I'll have heard a reading dozens of times. And it's like, oh my gosh, in the context of this new problem, something just jumps off the page. So, I think that the scripture is beautiful in the sense that it's living and breathing. It's not just a book that we're reading. When we open up the Bible, the Lord speaks to us in the midst of what we're going through. And sometimes the smallest detail will jump out at me. Like, I never noticed that before, but that's exactly what I needed to hear today. Or sometimes I'll get, like I said, I didn't really need to, Lord, you don't understand. I got financial problems today. I don't really have time to love somebody my enemy or whatever, but, maybe this isn't all about me. Maybe you are supposed to be speaking to me, not saying the words that I want you to say.
Right.
Right. So.
Gary, I don't know that you would remember this because the book I have is Give Up Worry for Good. And it's
Yes.
it's an 8-week process where you do these reflections daily, and then you meet once a week in a small group, and you've got guidance for that. I love that. But one of the things you were saying a moment ago made me think of this, and it's from your introduction. It's the subject heading is Breaking Free from Worry is a Process.
Right.
And you just mentioned the process earlier, and I wanted to just call that out, that it's not that it happens overnight.
No.
That's something that you build and build upon over and over from that firm foundation.
Yeah, exactly. And because sometimes people get frustrated and say, I thought I'm not worrying anymore. But, we have to remember that we're not going to be able to do this on our own. And God doesn't want us to. He doesn't want us to forget about him. Because if I read a self-help book, and this is why anxiety, and I don't mean to make light of it, because I know some people struggle greatly with not just – I've never had, as far as I know, clinical anxiety, but for some people, it's a biological condition. It's a very serious problem, and it keeps them up at night. It makes them sick. Some people won't even go out of the house. It's a very serious problem. However, in my case, I'm a lifelong worrier. Whether I was never diagnosed with clinical anxiety, but I had some pretty bad effects from my anxiety. It's brought me closer to the Lord because it makes me realize how much I need him. And I think that's one of the blessings of being anxious, of being somebody who tends to be anxious or afraid. We realize we can't do this on our own. And I can't stop being anxious on my own. I can't control my feelings at all. And that's another thing to remember. Feelings can't be controlled, but feelings can lead us to draw closer to the Lord. I can use my feeling of anxiety to say, Jesus, help me. I'm in trouble. That's a good use. A bad use would be to just worry about our problems. But I think anxiety and feelings of helplessness are good because it keeps us grounded. I've met plenty of people who say, I never worry. Everything works out. I can handle it. And they have no relationship with Jesus because they're overconfident. So in my case, I'm grateful for my anxiety because it's drawn me closer to him. And I think some of that is healthy.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, I think you said it, I know you said it at least once, maybe multiple times in the book. And it was the first thing I wrote down. And it says, I need Jesus to be real for me, as real for me as the problem I am facing.
Right. That's important.
That's
important.
That.
And it's so true because one of the when I lead parish missions, I always give a talk at the masses prior to the mission. And one thing I'll say, why do we worry? As Christians, why do we worry? Because Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, come to me if you're weary and burdened and I'll give you rest. Well, why don't we just go to him? It's because our problems, our bills that we can't pay, our medical conditions, our loneliness, whatever it is, oftentimes they are more real to us than Jesus. And that's the thing. This book was written for someone who needs Jesus to be real at that moment. If Jesus wasn't real to Peter, he was going to drown. Peter needed Jesus to save him. And I think, I don't know about you ladies, but I know I pray, it's not intentional, but it just happens. I pray differently when everything is going well in my life. When things are going well for me, it's like, Lord, please bless me, bless my family. Let this be a good day. Use me as your instrument. But when I have a health crisis, or when my wife was having a convulsive seizure, we didn't know she had epilepsy until last year. She looked like she was dying on the bed as I called the ambulance. At that point, my prayer is, oh my gosh, Lord, save me, help her, heal her. So when we're in a crisis, when we're sinking, when our problems are going to kill us, we feel, then we pray with the intensity of Peter, Lord, save me. And Jesus he's got to be real at that point. Otherwise, we're in trouble. And of course, he is real. But we tend, because we can't see him, because we can't always hear him audibly, we tend to, our problems, that piece of paper I'm looking at, that bad medical diagnosis, that's a lot more real than Jesus at this point in time. So we have to find a way to flip that around so that we turn to him and we say, Lord, you're bigger than this. Please help me.
I love that.
I was going to ask you what advice you'd give to someone who wants to pray and grow closer to Christ through their anxiety and worries. But I kind of feel like you just said it.
Yeah. It doesn't, I mean, don't overthink it. Invite him into your life. Lord, save me. I surrender. Help. They're good prayers. But sometimes they don't feel good enough. Like I get a little weird about stuff like this. I have to tell you, it's like, oh, that's not enough. Lord, save me. I got to say something more. I need to do a novena. And I love novenas. But look, Peter didn't have time for a novena at that point in time. Peter was drowning and he needed help. And it's documented that 3-word prayer worked. That's a very effective prayer, So that's the advice. Start small. And if I could, I know I'm talking a lot, but I get fired up when I do these interviews and talk about Jesus. What I feel really important to anybody who is struggling, look, if it's possible, first of all, ask Jesus to help you. If he's not real enough to you, ask him, Lord, please become more real to me. Help me to understand how real you are. And what has also worked for me as a Catholic, I am blessed to be able to go to daily mass. And not everybody can do that, but that's helped me tremendously. Go to confession frequently, as often as on a regular basis, because a lot of people aren't taking advantage of that great sacrament. And the sacraments give grace. And what happens with grace? Grace gives us peace. And also try to read some scripture each day, and that's why my books are written in a way that they utilize a lot of scripture, a verse here, a verse there, because some people struggle with the Bible. The Bible's a tough book. I struggle with the Bible. And I've never done well with reading it sequentially. And you tell people to read the Bible, they say, where do I start? Do I do Genesis? Do I do Old Testament, New Testament? And sometimes I've gotten paralyzed not knowing where to start with the Bible. So just stay in contact with the Lord. I'm also a big believer in Eucharistic adoration. And again, not everybody has time to do these things, but the more time you spend in the presence of Jesus and avail yourself of the graces he gives us through the sacraments, the more you're going to change, the more real he's going to become. And there's not always an exact formula or science to it. If I say this prayer, he's going to become real. It's more of a process that over time, he's so real to me that I'm talking to him all the time. So that's what I would say to somebody struggling. Start small. He will help you. He wants to do most of the work. But if you want to meet him, you'll meet him. Look at Herod. Herod always desired to meet Jesus for the wrong reasons, but he always wanted to meet him. He eventually met him when he was brought before him, right before Jesus was put to death. But look, if you want to encounter Jesus, he will make himself present to you.
One of the things that brings to mind, Gary, is I work with the Life Teen and our middle school and high school youth. And we're always reminding them that if you aren't spending time with Jesus, he can't become a friend to you. You spend time with your friends. You call and talk to your friends every day. You want to be in their presence for the interaction with them. So why aren't you being friends with Jesus? And that's what I heard you saying. And even as adults, we need to be reminded of that.
Right.
It is in going and spending that time with him.
Yeah. And at first it seems like he's just an imaginary friend. But I always tell people, don't be put off by that. We can't see him. We can't hear him. It's okay. It's kind of weird at first. But now I'm becoming, and I'm, you never want to get to that point where you say, okay, I'm close enough to him. I don't need to get any closer. Right. No, we never want to be at that point. We always want to be drawing closer to him. But I'm sure you both agree with this, that the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. I mean, I'm talking to him, I don't know how to word this delicately, but one of the best places is when I'm in the bathroom taking a shower. It's like that's a private area. It's like I talk to him there all the time. I don't know. I didn't want that.
We've actually shared that on another podcast. That
it's true though. It's some people that's the only free time they can get, and it's like, well, that's a good place. Talk to him in the shower.
It's a quiet time.
It is.
It's a quiet time because you're away. You've closed the doors. The kids are all in other rooms. Nobody's
absolutely.
Well, we don't have kids young enough to be banging on the door while we're in the shower.
Right.
But yes. So it's a place where you can kind of like relax and like, okay, why am I thinking of God while I'm standing in the shower?
Yeah. But it took me a long time to realize that. Wow, this is a great opportunity for me. It's peaceful here. So, I mean, there's this. I like taking walks and talking to the Lord. Sometimes I talk to him out loud, and I'm thinking like people are going to think I'm crazy, but
I don't even think you're on your phone.
Well, nowadays that's true.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
true. People do think that anymore. But he has become very real to me. Not quite real enough. Again, I'm going to be working on that for the rest of my life. But man, he is so real, and I really do take a lot of comfort in our friendship.
Well, I'm going to head off a question. Anyone who's sitting here listening to us going, but I'm too busy. I don't have time. I'm going to direct them to read chapter 9 when you're burdened or overwhelmed, because Gary, you do a beautiful job at the beginning of that chapter, really kind of addressing that question. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I just, that was such a moment for me to read that. And I loved it. So
Thank you.
if you don't feel like you have time, get the book and skip to chapter 9. And that you did address that. You don't have to read it in order. You can skip to whichever chapter.
Exactly.
You're
And we're
feeling.
all busy. I hate to, this is the thing. I'm a Catholic writer and a speaker. There are times when I have to tear myself away from writing my reflections. I'm too busy. I don't have time to pray, because I've learned you're not the one doing the work, and you have to make that time for the Lord. But that's so hard as somebody who likes to do things all the time. And you don't have to spend 2 hours in prayer, but I mean, just take a break and just turn your mind to Him. And it's hard. It's hard. It gets easier though, I think, because it feels like almost like you're wasting time. And I had a really holy priest. He was a former spiritual director who was talking about Eucharistic adoration. And he said, Gary, don't be afraid to waste time with the Lord. I was like, wow, that sounds so bad, but it's true. Like, I got things to write. I've got my family to take care of. And I'm not advocating we shirk our family responsibility. I'm a husband and father. I got to do things for my family. But there are times when I just sit with the Lord, and I've learned that, wow, that's powerful. So yeah, we're busy. We can't forget about Him. Get up earlier. I do most of my good praying in the morning. I used to pray before I went to bed, but then I just fall asleep on my prayers. But I start my day that's a common thing, but I start my day by forcing myself. I don't always feel like it, but forcing myself to spend time with the Lord.
Love that. So you mentioned you're a doer. So I'm going to ask you, what's next? What are you working on now?
I don't know. I think I have a book in my mind. It's starting to formulate, but this one is my 14th book. I think there's some more things I have to say, and I write my daily reflections still. I still go out and speak, but I'm not going to force myself to write a book. I'll write the book that the Lord wants. And it drives me crazy. Don't think that's easy for me. It's like, I got to do it. I got to write it, but it doesnent work. Right? It doesn't work. If I force myself, I'm not going to write the Lord's book. I'll write my own book. So I'm praying about it. I'm spending a lot of time in adoration. We have a church that recently opened an adoration chapel, and I've been praying for this for a long time, because where we live now, there wasn't a chapel close by. So in addition to daily mass, I'm just sitting with the Lord. I'm trying to get there every day, and I'm able to do that right now. For some time. And I'm just asking Him, Lord, what do you got for me? Use me, and He doesn't answer right away all the time. And that I don't like that, but I'm starting to get that it's all about His timing and not my timing.
That's right.
Kind of like a radio tuner. You're turning it around. It's like, we don't
exactly.
have radio tuners anymore, do we?
No, we don't.
We
don't. But I grew up with them, so I know exactly what you mean. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like the image I have of you as sitting there, kind of like with the antennas up, going, "All right, God,
yeah,
I know, I can feel it. I feel there's something at work, but I don't know what it is yet. So
exactly,
keep bringing it. I'm ready when you are."
Exactly, and that's kind of scary too, because it might be something that I don't really want to do, but that's all part of it. That's why, okay, Lord, use me. I have some preferences, but you know best.
Never
right?
tell God your preferences.
No, I know. I've learned that.
He will laugh. He'll be like, "That's cute, Gary.
Yeah,
that's cute. Over here, we're going in the store." Not
yeah,
that way.
exactly. It's funny. I just want to share quickly. I was writing a reflection today. I write them a few days in advance, and it was about being interrupted. And there have been so many times when I'm trying to say my prayers in the morning, and my wife or my daughters will need something. And it's like, don't you, I'm praying. And to myself, I think, I'm praying. This is my time with the Lord. And the Lord's saying, I need you to go serve your family members right now. And a lot of times He'll do that. I tend to want to serve him in the way I want to serve him. And no, Lord, see, this is prayer time. Like right now, this is my prayer time. This is how I'm going to serve you. I don't have time to take care of somebody in my family. I mean, makes you look really bad, but this is how selfish I can be. And I don't think it's a common, I think it's a common problem that we all tend to want to serve him in the way we want to serve him. But sometimes he's going to ask us to serve him in a different way. And that's not always easy. He's going to keep asking more and more of us. And during that period when my wife was sick, she wasn't able to drive for 6 months, and I was doing all the driving. I was doing a lot, and it really affected I had to give back deposits for speaking engagements that I couldn't make, and it was frustrating at first, but then really rewarding because I realized the Lord's asking me to do something that I ordinarily wouldn't want to do. And I think that happens with illness, with unemployment, with unexpected family relationship problems. He often interrupts our plans to ask us to serve him in the way that he needs us. And I think that's how we grow spiritually. And there's a lot of peace if we go along with it and don't fight it.
I agree with
Romans 8:28 just came to mind while you were saying that.
Great verse. Great for all things, right? He can work good in all things. And I know so many friends of mine. I've been doing this full-time speaking thing for 13, going on 14 years now. And I know people that have Catholic evangelists who've traveled around speaking. I've seen some of them get sick. I've seen some people even die unexpectedly. And it kind of shakes you up. It's like, wow, these people aren't able to go on the road anymore. They can't write. And it reminds you that all we have is today. Lord, how can I serve you today? And if you're going to need me to serve you in a different way, then I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it. Just give me the grace, Lord. Send me where you need me. That's hard. That's a hard prayer for me to pray, but that's the way he wants us to be.
It is. All right.
Did you have anything else, Lisa?
No, I was gonna say I want to thank Gary for his time, but we have 2 questions we ask all of our guests. And I will throw it to Shelly to do that.
Well, Gary, we asked you before we got on if you have a sister, and you did say yes.
I do.
And because Lisa and I are sisters who podcast together, we always ask our guests, is there a sister story that you can share with us with the caveat that it will not get you in trouble?
There are sister stories. There are plenty of sister stories, but none that I'm willing to share. There actually is one. But look, my sister was 7 years younger than me. I was an only child for a long time. And when she came along, it seemed like it was my life goal to torture her. So again, it's going to make me look really bad. I was not nice to her at times. I would torment her. She was the favorite. I don't resent anything, but I did a lot of stupid things. But, you tipped me off in advance that you might ask this question. But I do want to say one thing serious. The thing with my sister is she said something to me one time that I really do want to share because this is important. I was a jerky kid. I was a jerky adult too, actually, for a while. And even though I went to mass, I wasn't always the nicest person in the world. I was pretty self-centered, and I tend to be sarcastic and have a sharp tongue at times. And as we were older at the time, I was an adult, and I said some hurtful things. And my sister said to me, Gary, you have to remember, once you say these things, you can't take them back sometimes. The words do damage. And, that was really profound. And that affected me. And since that point in time, and that was years ago, but I've tried to really be careful about what I say because we could do a lot of damage with our tongue. So that's one profound thing my sister said. I don't know if she even remembers that she said it to me, but it did affect me. So, it's funny how God can use people to really touch you in ways that they don't even realize what they're saying at the time. I guess at the time she did. I probably just got done saying something nasty. But that I still carry that with me, and I remember. So that's my sister's story. We keep in touch, but we're different in age. She's a girl. I'm a boy. So we weren't all that close. But so that's my sister's story. I'll end with that positive one. But and I think it's a reminder that all of us were feeling the need to serve God from an early age. You read about the saints sometimes, and I think, oh my gosh. 8-year-old kid is giving food to the poor. And, that was not my goal when I was 25. That was not my goal. But,
Yep.
I think a lot of us have a past, and the Lord can work with whatever, he gives us a chance to start over.
I think that sister story was beautiful because as sisters, as the two of us, we definitely understand what you just said. And that's something that we have consciously worked on over the years between the two of us. So I think that is very relatable for almost anyone who has a sibling. Yeah. Very much.
Well, yeah. I'm glad it was helpful. But that you're asking the question made me think about that again. And I still have that tendency, and I just have to watch myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so our last question is about saints, and it's what saint is kind of walking with you right now at this particular stage in your life, or maybe is trying to get your attention.
I'm going to go with it's hard to narrow it down to one saint because I really do love the saints. And the one who I talk to every day in my family, we still do a family rosary, which is really great. My daughters they're going to be turning 28. And again, they live with us, and we still pray the rosary as a family every night. We started when they were very young, and somehow this is really rooted. And when my wife and I might be out, or one of us is not there, the girls try to get together when they're home and pray the rosary on their own. So we talk to the Blessed Mother every day. She's been so helpful to us. But as a man and as a father who has struggled, I mean, being a full-time Catholic speaker, it's been tough supporting a family like this for 13 years. Again, I didn't expect to do this, but it's been tough. St. Joseph has helped me so much. And I really turn to him and ask him to watch over us as a family, to lead us the way he led Jesus and Mary. In case I mess up, because I am so human and I am so weak, in case I mess up, it's good to know that St. Joseph has my back. So Blessed Mother is important to us as a family, but to me as a husband and a father, St. Joseph is my guy, and I really do depend on him.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing it.
My pleasure.
You still do a rosary every night. Wow.
I know. We didn't think this would last, and it just we do it, and we don't always feel like doing it, but we really find a way to get it done.
Impacting the family, even all these years. I love that.
And my kids didn't want to do it when they were young. We would start with the decade, it's like, oh my gosh. But you know what? I didn't always want to do it either. But I've learned to really take comfort in that time and remind myself I'm in the presence of the Blessed Mother and Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit. This is pretty cool, and sometimes that's my thought when I struggle to meditate on the mysteries of the Rosary, because it's never been easy for me. My mind is all over the place, but sometimes I just picture Mary standing there and I'm in her presence, and that comforts me and helps me.
I haven't thought about that. That's a really good one. To picture her standing with us.
Yeah, it helps. It helps because sometimes I go off in so many different directions. I start, let me pray, let me meditate upon this mystery, and before you know it, it's like, that dinner was pretty good. Dessert, all right, and I got this right. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not meditating on the mystery.
Right.
I know what you mean. Many years ago, I started a new job, and it had a long commute, and I used to pray the rosary every day on that commute. It started out, I think, as a Lenten devotion, and I often used to think that I had Mary in the front seat with me.
That's nice.
And so that's what I'd be like. I'm driving with Mary in the front seat, and so
that's nice.
You'd never know you'd be passing people on the side of the highway, or maybe their car was broken down, and you'd be like offering up that next Hail Mary for that person on the side of the road, or offering another one for someone else in the next car that looks stressed out. Or so that's what came to mind when you said that about being in the presence. I was like, oh my gosh, I did that. I didn't think about it intentionally, but that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the key when we pray, because sometimes we can all go through the motions when we pray. It's easy to fall into that. But once you picture the presence of God, it really changes things. It changes things for me. It helps me.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Gary. Gosh, we've enjoyed this time with you so much.
Me too. Thank you. You guys are great. Thank you. This really lifted my spirits today. I was a little down today. I was tired.
Oh,
And I
well, it
told
was
my
good
wife, I
timing.
said, I'm tired. She said, well, you always get uplifted when you do these interviews, but you both are great. I can't thank you enough. I'm so grateful to give you
We
this time.
appreciate
And
it.
I hope we can stay in touch.
Yes, I hope so. First, where can our listeners find you?
The easiest place is my website, which is followingthetruth.com.
Oh, I like that. And they can
And
sign
you can
up
sign up
for
for your daily reflections
go.
there. 'cause
Yes,
I
they're
just
free of
did
charge.
right before we
Oh,
got
you
on the
did?
call.
Oh, so cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I do write them all myself. Sometimes people think I have other people write. No, I write everyone myself. I don't recycle them. I look at the readings. I say, all right, Lord, guide me, but I write them every day. And thank you. I appreciate that.
And they can find all of your books there
Yes,
also.
yes,
And
yes.
I know you have a series with Ave Maria Press. So see if we can hold all the different ones
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And you can find them at, I think their website is Ave Maria Press.
AveMariaPress.com. Yes.
.com. Okay.
They're good people. So they've
people.
really helped me.
So that you can find them there, or you can find them really at, Amazon or local Catholic booksellers probably as well.
Right.
So-
Yes, they are everywhere.
We appreciate you being here and really just sharing this with us. I personally have a history with my family and everything with anxiety and worry, and so your books have really, like I said, spoken to me over the years, and so I appreciated
you.
this opportunity to talk to you directly. And I'm sure that many of our listeners will have that connection as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, listeners, if you are hearing this message, then you have listened to the entire podcast episode. And for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Your review and your feedback helps us grow and bring you even better content. We invite you to stay connected with us and join the conversation on Instagram or Facebook at Sound Mind and Spirit. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next. All right. Thank you once again, Gary, for being here. And thank you, dear listeners, for joining us today. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.